Hey everyone, I'm Scott from Myelitis and welcome to the third episode of Scott's story. In this video I'm going to be talking about my recovery from transverse myelitis after I was discharged from hospital on the 11th of March 2020. This will include the physical therapy, diet and medication I was using after I'd left the hospital and begun my recovery from home. So, let's get started. So, a quick recap from last episode was that I had been discharged from hospital after making significant recovery from transverse myelitis. Strength and some sensation had returned to my legs and I was now able to walk again. However, I was still having issues with my bladder and had to be discharged with a catheter. I had also had a lumbar puncture or spinal tap in the hospital and I was waiting for the results of this and some blood tests to see if the cause of my transverse myelitis could be identified. So after I was discharged, I immediately started to research into transverse myelitis and what I could do to help aid my recovery. I was still taking 50 milligrams of prednisolone each day, and that was helping to reduce the inflammation. But I decided to look into any exercise, stretches and diets that may be able to help my recovery even further. I found that transverse myelitis could be caused by a few different conditions, and the worst of them seemed to be multiple sclerosis or MS in the quick research that I did. In hindsight, after looking further into these conditions in a bit more depth, this might not have been quite correct, but I decided to diagnose myself with MS as the worst case scenario and go with this until I heard further from the neurologist. And the logic behind this was that if I was properly diagnosed later with MS, I'd have been on the right track from the very start and maximise my chances of recovery from the condition. But if I was diagnosed with something else, that would be fortunate, as I didn't have the worst condition and I could adjust my recovery instead. Since I was temporarily diagnosing myself with the worst case scenario of MS, I began looking into MS diets and how they can help with recovery from the condition. One of the diets that I found was the Wahls Diet from the book Minding My Mitochondria by Dr. Terry Wahls. Dr. Wahls was diagnosed with MS and it progressed so much that she had to use a wheelchair for 4 years. And in 18 months with an intensive diet and electrical therapy program, she was able to recover and began to cycle 5 miles to work and back each day on a bicycle. The diet itself is heavily focused on reducing inflammatory food such as dairy and gluten and then replacing them with a Mediterranean style of diet such as fish, dark greens such as spinach, and other foods which include omega-3 and B vitamins. Whilst I didn't fully commit to the diet, I did try and remove as many inflammatory foods as possible and swap them for more organic ones. For example, I changed butter to hummus, I used almond milk instead of regular milk, and I began eating a lot more fish and dark green vegetables. Now, as you can tell from the title of this video, I wasn't diagnosed with MS, so I'm not too sure whether this diet did aid my recovery or not. But after they say the recovery that I made from this point on was very good, and I believe that the diet could have helped. I'll probably do a video about diets and rare neuro-immune conditions in the future, but outside of MS I don't believe there's much research on it. I will leave a link in the description to this book if you want to check out the Dr. Wahls Diet further and read her recovery story about how she overcame secondary progressive MS using this diet. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about physical therapy. Now I was back at home, I also read that exercise and stretching can help to relieve the spasticity of transverse myelitis and possibly aid with the recovery. Since the first lockdown had already come into effect in the UK and I still had the catheter in, I decided to start with simple bodyweight exercises. At the start I alternated between doing upper body workouts, including push-ups against the wall, before moving to ones on the ground such as abdominal crunches, planks, and lower body workouts which included squats, lunges and calf raises. I also started to use the stairs in my house as often as possible, despite it taking me much longer than usual to use them. Eventually, I was able to go from having to take the stairs one step at a time by placing one foot on a step and then bringing the other foot alongside it by using the handrail to support me, to being able to walk up and down the stairs without any handrail support within a few weeks. After I had the catheter removed, I then began to do cardio exercises, firstly by walking in my local park, which helped with regaining strength and balance. And the physical therapy wasn't the only thing which was bringing improvements. On the 1st of April I went back to the hospital for a third attempt at removing the catheter in a trial without catheter, also known as a TWOC. Thankfully this attempt was successful and I was able to release urine after the catheter was removed. However, I wasn't able to release all of the urine in my bladder, and a bladder scanner confirmed that there was some remaining after I'd gone to the toilet. This is an issue and can cause problems for your bladder if all the urine isn't released. So at the hospital I was introduced to intermittent self-catheterisation as a potential solution to the problem. This involves using a one-time temporary catheter to drain your bladder, and it does not need to be held permanently in place. From the 1st of April I started to self-catheterise between 1 to 3 times per day, and that often depended on what activities I was doing during the day. At the start I really disliked doing this, as it's not the most pleasant thing to do, but I started to realise that by doing it I was actually giving myself a lot more freedom. I used to always catheterise before bed, as it used to reduce the chances of me waking up and needing to rush to the toilet in the middle of the night, and also reduce the chances of having accidents whilst I was sleeping. I also self-catheterise before exercise or walking, as I found that exercise tends to aggravate or activate the bladder. Having to stop your walk to run home to go to the toilet isn't very fun, so I tried to reduce the chances of this happening as much as possible. I'll probably do another series on how to manage bladder issues when recovering from a neuro-immune condition, including self-catheterisation at some point in the future. Okay, so now I'll talk about the steroid taper which I did after I had left the hospital. Since leaving the hospital I was to take 50 mg of prednisolone tablets each morning with food and water, alongside lansoprazole to help with stomach acid issues. On the 26th of March I dropped the dose of steroids down to 40 mg and was told to hold this level until I heard from the neurologist, who would call me later with further instructions. On the 11th of May my neurologist rang me and explained that I had tested positive for MOG antibodies whilst I was in hospital. This changed my diagnosis from transverse myelitis to MOG antibody disease. Alongside this I was also instructed to reduce the level of steroids down to 30 mg starting from the 12th of May and then drop to 20 mg on the 15th of June. Thankfully the acute treatment for transverse myelitis isn't any different to MOG antibody disease, so my treatment's correct all the way through my attack and my recovery. Alongside this, my blood test had also shown low vitamin D levels, which are believed to be linked to many neurological conditions. To treat this I had to take 20,000 units of D3 each month for 3 months, and then have my blood tested again to see if my vitamin D levels had improved. So overall I was making a pretty good recovery, tapering down from the steroids nicely and having no issues with side effects. So far all really positive. I'm going to leave it here for today, so if you've enjoyed the episode be sure to give it a like and subscribe for future episodes of my story. I've had a look at the views lately and there's still lots of people unsubscribed who are watching this series. Subscribing is completely free and you'll get a notification every time a new video is uploaded, so you won't miss any future episodes. You also help grow the channel and help get this information out to more people who are looking for information on MOG antibody disease and how to recover from it. If you have any questions about my story, feel free to ask them in the comment section below and I'll respond to them when I can. I know there's been some issues with the auto-generated subtitles lately, but I have to wait a few hours after the video is uploaded before they are generated. Then I can review them, edit them and make sure they're correct. So if the subtitles aren't there, please wait for them to generate and I'll get round to reviewing them as soon as I can. Once I've checked them, I'll put a comment in the comment section below to say that they've been checked. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you in the next video.